In every election, as Canadians, we get to make an important choice about the future of our country. We get to decide what kind of future we want to build together.
Who can you trust to help you and your family to get ahead? And the answer is certainly not Justin Trudeau.
It's clear Justin Trudeau isn't who he pretended to be. And Andrew Scheer and the Conservatives are not the answer.
We are the party for a real change.
This election is about telling the truth to Canadians about how serious the climate emergency really is.
40 days and counting. The federal election campaign is officially underway, and party leaders didn't waste any time. Let's start with the Liberal leader, Justin Trudeau. He started his day here in Ottawa asking the Governor-General to dissolve Parliament. He then hopped on a plane to head west to Vancouver for a rally later tonight with candidate Tamara Taggart. The CBC's David Cochrane is traveling with Trudeau's campaign team, and he has this report from the tarmac in Ottawa.
Well, Vashi, on day one of this campaign, the Liberal plane was wheels up for the lower mainland of British Columbia, which is going to be one of the most critical battlegrounds in this election. Specifically, they're going to the riding of Vancouver Kingsway, which is held by New Democrat MP Don Davies. Now, Davies won this seat by a healthy margin in 2015, but it's one the Liberals have targeted for pickup. They have a well-known candidate running there, Tamara Taggart, who's a well-known television personality in British Columbia. And the Liberal strategy in that region really hinges on making gains at the expense of the NDP. The Liberals have targeted a lot of NDP seats across this country as places where they can grow the caucus, not just in British Columbia, but also in Ontario and especially in Quebec. And making those gains is going to be critical to Justin Trudeau's re-election, as the Liberals are almost certainly to lose some seats in Atlantic Canada, where they hold everything, and definitely in Western Canada, where the Liberal brand is really suffering going into this campaign. So in the early stages, you're seeing Trudeau go on offense back to Vancouver, where he started the 2015 campaign targeting an NDP seat. Interestingly, he's going to be in British Columbia on day one, because this will be on election night vital to determining who wins this election. The polls right now nationally show the Conservatives and the Liberals neck and neck. By the time the polls close in British Columbia, it's voters there who could decide not only who forms the government, but whether it's a majority or a minority. So Trudeau's going to see them on day one of this campaign in the hopes they'll be kind to him on the last day of the campaign. Vashi?
Thanks so much, David. The CBC's David Cochrane traveling with the Liberals. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Andrew Scheer headed to a key battleground for his campaign launch. His day started in Ottawa, where he boarded the campaign plane. Then he traveled to Trois-Rivières, Quebec, to kickstart his campaign. He later flew to a riding in the Greater Toronto area, Vaughan Woodbridge, for a second campaign that is happening anytime now. The CBC's Katie Simpson is traveling with Scheer's team, and she has this report from Trois-Rivières.
Vashi, two big issues dominated Andrew Scheer's first day on the campaign: SNC-Lavalin and Quebec's secularism law. The Conservative leader couldn't stop smiling about the latest allegations in the SNC-Lavalin affair. And even though this issue is not as controversial in Quebec, since the company's headquarters is here, Scheer didn't hold back on his attacks against Justin Trudeau.
As this election campaign begins, Canadians learned two disturbing details about the SNC-Lavalin corruption scandal. Number one, the RCMP are looking into the Liberal government for possible obstruction of justice. And number two, Justin Trudeau is doing everything he can to block them.
Scheer's first rally was lively, since a dozen protesters with noisemakers kept trying to interrupt him. To counter that, though, the energetic Conservative crowd chanted Scheer's name repeatedly. He also used that backdrop to clarify his position on Quebec's secularism law. He says while he opposes it, a Conservative government would not intervene legally. Scheer won't get any more questions on that tonight when he heads to the Greater Toronto area. He'll be pushing his main economic message, that a Conservative government will leave more money in your pocket, particularly in a part of the country where the cost of living keeps going up. Vashi.
Thanks, Katie. Katie Simpson with the Conservatives. Now to the NDP leader's first day off the starting block. Jagmeet Singh launched his campaign in London, Ontario, minutes after Justin Trudeau met with the Governor-General in Ottawa. The CBC's Hannah Thibodeau is traveling with Singh's team. Hannah?
Hey Vashi, it's been a bit of a shaky start for NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. He started this campaign low in the polls. Also, they have a limited war chest, which means they have to make choices where they focus their energies. The first couple of weeks will be in vote-rich Ontario and Quebec, but also how they travel around. They have one bus as opposed to two that they have had in all of the other campaigns, and the plane will hit the skies a little bit later. But they're also struggling to nominate all of their candidates. They still have over 100 candidates to put in place, but Jagmeet Singh says he is still the viable candidate for the two frontrunners, which are the Liberals and the Conservatives, but many polls suggest that he is often in a race with the Greens, with Elizabeth May's Green Party, and that the Greens are nipping at the NDP. The next hurdle for Jagmeet Singh is the debate tomorrow night, which of course he is now going to hunker down for. He's going to practice for the rest of today and tomorrow to get ready for that very important debate. Vashi.
Thanks, Hannah. Hannah Thibodeau for us with the NDP. Now over to Green Party leader Elizabeth May. She kicked things off this morning in Victoria, BC, where she was joined by local candidates. Her message to voters: she's the federal leader who will take the climate crisis most seriously.
No one can dissuade us from seeing clearly that we need to move away from fossil fuels as quickly as possible. And that's mission possible. We can be 100% renewable energy by 2030.
Also running in this election, Maxime Bernier, leader and founder of the People's Party of Canada. Bernier launched his campaign in Etobicoke, Ontario, alongside one of his candidates, Renata Ford, widow of the late Toronto Mayor Rob Ford. His message? Take a listen.
There's no climate emergency in this country. We're pragmatic and realistic, and we're saying to Canadians, if climate change is so important at the provincial level, your provincial government can deal with that. The environment, it's a shared jurisdiction. But for us, we won't add any regulations, we won't add any taxes.
And finally, the sixth major party leader of this race, Yves-François Blanchet. The Bloc Québécois leader kicked off his campaign in Quebec City. Of course, he only plans to campaign in Quebec. He says he'll fight to protect what he describes as a new Quebec nationalism.
An election is all about choosing who will represent you, who will be true to who we are and who you are, not as a province, but as a nation.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video. Thanks for watching.